So welcome back, everybody, to the podcast. I'm actually super excited about this episode because I have the amazing James Johnston here from all the way from Australia. He's one of the highest streamed artists, is that correct, for country music all over Australia? The most singles that hit #1, selling out entertainment centers, playing at the Golden Globes. He's just absolutely killing it in Australia right now. But the coolest part is we've actually been friends for about 10 years or so now, which is happy decade anniversary. So I'm super excited to see where this episode's going to go. Jamesy, thank you so much for joining in.
Mate, I'm very honoured to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, man. So I remember a few years ago, before you kind of just started to really pop in Australia, even when we used to perform together, right? I remember you were kind of more in the pop era, like you were doing more pop tunes and trying to break the market in the pop tune sort of way. What was your transition into country music, and why did it kind of appeal to you, and why do you think it's working for you?
Well, country music was kind of always in the roots. You know, I was singing country from about the age of 4, and pretty much was doing country up until about the age of 16. That's pretty much all I would listen to, and that's all I sang. And then, you know, the kind of the way it goes that whatever your dad or your mum's into, you want to be into the exact opposite. You know, I grew up with my family being into country music. So at 16, I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And I kind of went away and I did, tried doing folk music. And to be honest, I feel like I was always kind of somewhat faking it a little bit. You know, I think everyone around me always knew that, you'll get back to country eventually. And then when I finally did, it all kind of just made sense and things started to work.
Yeah, I remember you're probably actually one of the hardest working artists I've ever seen in my life, though, to be fair. Because I remember when Corona first kicked in, and I think it was around the Corona stage where you started to actually probably go into country, is that right?
Yeah, like I'd had my foot in it for a while. Like I'd spent time going back and forth to Nashville for probably about 3 or 4 years before, COVID hit. But that was really the turning point. I actually had a one-way ticket booked to Nashville, and I was going to move to Nashville on the 11th of March. And the airports here in Australia closed on the 1st of March. So for me, my life kind of got upended a little bit, but I kind of just took a step back and I said, all right, well, I can either just sit here and do nothing, or I can see it as an opportunity. Now I've got a whole lot of time on my hands, and I just sat there and I started, just writing a lot of songs. And I thought, I'm going to work on my craft and become a better songwriter. And that is really, that turning point for me was a massive one, and said, okay, I'm really doing this and I'm going to go all in.
I remember when I was back in Australia, back during the start of the pandemic, and I think you were writing 2 songs per day?
Yeah, I was writing a lot. Yeah.
That's insane, man.
Yeah, there's a thing in Nashville that they talk about a lot, and it's the idea of, I guess, the grind, but the way that they dedicate themselves to songwriting. I think a lot of people have this idea that a song just kind of comes out of thin air. Somebody has a moment of inspiration and then they write this hit song. And that's, unfortunately, it's not the truth. In Nashville, people are writing 2, sometimes 3 songs a day, and there is thousands of people that are doing that to come up with a few pieces of gold that end up becoming the big songs that we know. And that's the same across the board. That's the same in pop music, be it LA or if you're in Sweden, wherever it is, that these hubs where songs are created. And I just kind of took that mentality. I said, well, if I'm going to be in Nashville and I'm going to be writing a couple of songs a day in Nashville, if I'm sitting here in my studio by myself, I'm going to do that, and I'm going to take that same mentality.
It reminds me of the content world of social media, TikTok and Instagram, stuff like that, where people delay for so long to go straight for quality over quantity. They want to produce the best thing, and they procrastinate on one piece of content for a long time to do the best editing and stuff like that. And there are a few channels that, they'll post 5 or 6 videos that are ridiculously good, and they'll blow up, sure. But that's such an outlier. The rest of the world that actually do well on social media, or whether it be music or movies, it's quantity produces quality. And yeah. I think that's just such a testament to what you did, where I remember you were showing me some of the songs you were writing. I'm like, damn, that's good. And you're like, it's just not quite there yet. And I'm like, yeah, it is. Sure, It is. And as just a listener, I was like, this is great. But as a songwriter, you would know it's not quite there yet, so you were producing and just churning out such huge amounts of music that eventually now almost every song that you've done has just gone straight to #1.
Which is incredible. It's interesting. I think, especially with songwriting, what I was searching for was that song that made people go, oh, like that's it. Whatever it is. I don't know what that is. I don't know. It's not tangible. And this is this thing that you can work really hard at becoming a better songwriter and learning the tips and the tricks. But it truly is that extra 5% that makes an everyday song or something that really connects. And for me, it was the first song that I released was a song called Raised Like That. And I was lucky that behind the scenes, so many people were constantly telling me, it's not right yet. It's not right yet. Wait until one song can change your life. And so when I wanted to kind of come out and really come out in a big way, I knew that one song had to be right. And it truly did, that song changed my life. It kind of became a bit of an anthem here in Australia, and it just opened up all these doors and all that work. It just kind of things started to work.
So did you almost delay Raise Like That? Did you almost not put it out?
Yeah, I think it's hard when you're writing that many songs to actually finally decide on the one song. That was a lot of pressure. I actually took a bit of a tip from you, to be honest. I remember a few weeks before it came out, you told me about Joe Dispenza. And I remember thinking, I was freaking out, and you said, you've got to put it out to the universe and, kind of meditate on it. And so every morning I used to go outside and I'd do a workout. And I wouldn't follow the Joe Dispenza script perfectly. I wouldn't sit there and meditate, but I would just do a workout for half an hour and listen to it. And I would picture that this song is a hit and everyone loves it and it works. And I don't know, there was some magic. I don't know what you call it, man, but it works. So I still every time that there's a new song that's about to come out, Joe Dispenza comes back onto the playlist, and I'm listening to it religiously.
That's incredible. Oh man, wow. It's so funny because I give that to every single one of my clients as well, and every single one of them has some weird magical experience that just coincidentally pops up into their life. When I got my TEDx talk, it was from about 2 weeks before I got the offer for the TEDx. Yep. I'd already been doing this manifestation stuff for a while, but I wasn't clear on what I wanted. And then in this one that I was just imagining, it was a red carpet under me with a stage that looked like a TEDx talk, right?
Yeah.
And literally 2 weeks later, I was going to the bathroom and just before a cinema, and I checked my phone and it was TEDx. It's like, hey, would you be interested in actually speaking for us and potentially doing an activation? We've got a lot of speakers lined up and a lot of applications, but it's just not quite right. So we want to add some fresh ideas. Would you be interested? And I'm like, holy crap. And then from that point, everything just started like blowing up as well before and even after all the social media started happening as well. But it's really interesting that, once you start applying, I don't want to say laws of attraction, but when you get really focused on what you want to happen and you get kind of emotionally attached to a future outcome, the universe weirdly bends towards your will.
Man,
it's kind of strange, but it's kind of cool.
It is. I could not agree with that more. And I don't I don't even know what it is. And I think you dive deeper in than even I do in terms of like trying to understand what that is. But absolutely throughout the last kind of 2 years since my career started and is kind of taken off, I just have had a really clear vision on the things that I want to achieve. And I said, all right, well, this is going to happen. And, for instance, coming up, we just got here in Australia, there's this thing called the Golden Guitars, which is our big awards night in country music for, recognizing the songs. And last year we could have been in the running. And I remember I sat down with my manager and I said, I don't think I want to go this year. Like, I think I want to just wait. And we both had this idea that said, I want to come back and I want to be I want to kind of shock the industry a little bit, and I want to be the most nominated artist that year. And he said, because we were only up for potentially one award that year. And I said, but next year we knew that we could be nominated for as many as we wanted to be. And so he said, yeah, let's hold off. And this year I was the most nominated artist, and out of any of the artists in Australia. And the same thing happened.
That's the same.
We said we had a lot of offers last year to come and do a show as part of that festival. And we said, no, the timing's not right. When we come back, we want to put on a show that everyone talks about, and we want to put the biggest show of Tamworth. And we decided about 3 months before we put the show on sale that we were going to do it. And we said, well, what's the one place that would be undeniable? So we just found the biggest venue in as part of the festival, which was the entertainment center, and we just absolutely had a clear vision. We said we're going to sell it out, and we're going to sell it out in a week. And nobody else had ever done that or has ever done that. And we sold it out in 3 days.
Wow.
And it was,
Oh, dude.
it was just one of those things where we just had a clear vision, you know, we just said, we're going to do it. And and everyone around us, the amount of people that called us and said, you know, you're not ready, or you're not big enough artist, you're bitten off too much so you can chew. We said, no, we are going to do it. And we both were just undeniable about, you know, we had such a clear vision that this was going to happen, and we were going to sell this show out. And we did, we made it happen.
Dude, it's insane. I just love that you're just so certain about it as well, where it's like, and I think that like in most of the areas of my life where I've actually progressed, it was without listening to other people's criticisms or, you know, potential threats and not threats in the way of them threatening me, but the threat of the potential outcome. And whenever you kind of just, you know, trust the process, believe in yourself, as cliche as that really sounds, it's generally what works out the best.
Absolutely. And it doesn't come without work. You know, I think one of the things is that people have this idea that they want that, but you've got to have a really clear vision and then be able to willing to work your ass off. And also like taking all the bits of information that you can, like listen to everyone, but then kind of deconstruct the bits of advice that you want to keep and the bits of the advice that you want to let go. And, you know, we found out, you know, we became friends with the person that sells the most tickets in the entirety of Australia for any event. You know, they sell close to 300,000 tickets a year, and we kind of became friends with them and said, how do you do it? And we taught ourselves how to sell tickets, and we taught ourselves how to put shows on. And we just found these people, like these mentors that kind of, we said, this is our vision, this is what we want to achieve, and like, would you be willing to help us out? And everyone kind of did. Everyone that we wanted to, they saw our conviction and our belief that we're going to make this happen, and we just kind of soaked in all that information. And but there's a power in having that clear vision initially, just to kind of know exactly where we're going. And even when you walk into those rooms with these big heavy hitters, you don't have to kind of second guess yourself. You know, you go in there and say, this is what we're doing. We are going to do this. Do you want to be a part of this? And, you know, most of these people that we got on board, they had no vested interest. They're not making a cent off this, but they would just kind of believe that we were a couple of, you know, young guys. And the other person I talked about is my manager, Bo, and we're a team in all this. But they just kind of believed that we were, you know, two young guys, independent, willing to like risk it all and go big. And I think a lot of people kind of liked that and believed in that, you know.
I'm pretty sure you've always been like that, though.
Yeah.
I remember, so back in, what was it, 2013, 2014, when we did the 50 and 50?
Yeah.
What year was that? 2014, was it?
Yeah.
2013. 2014, I think it was, yeah.
2014, yeah.
Yeah. So James and I did this tour around Australia where it was 50 gigs in 50 days. And I remember this conversation just came up randomly. We're sitting around with our other friend, Matt, and James was just like, let's do something crazy. Let's do something just undeniably big. I don't know what it's going to be. And I think like 3 hours later, you messaged back like, we're going to do 50 gigs in 50 days all around Australia. And I was just like, yeah, sure, no worries. Yeah, that'll be fine. Next thing you know, about 3 or 4 months later, we're actually starting the tour and we're going around Australia. And James, I think you booked that thing pretty much yourself, and you ended up booking some of the gigs along the way. We're playing in some bowling alleys with people bowling gigs next to us with a stage in the center, and we were playing in roadhouses with 3 people and a dog. You know, like we were playing in some incredible places. You know, Uluru, the big red rock in the middle of Australia under the stars, and we had some of the most incredible experiences just because, you know, you had that vision of thinking big and saying, I don't know how we're going to do it, but I've got this vision. And with the execution, obviously, you need to work hard, which I want to actually chat to you about in a second. You know, it's actually completely achievable. But I think most people, not most people, but a lot of people are limited in the size of what they can think. You know, they have a pretty poor imagination in that style. So what kind of gives you that confidence to say, I'm going to create this huge task and this massive outcome, and trusting yourself enough to execute? What do you think that is? How do you have that drive? And how can other people potentially cultivate that drive?
I think it is something that's taken me a long time. It's something that's, to really kind of have that belief. I think it's the idea that not being afraid to fail. The idea of having enough confidence in yourself to know that if it all goes to shit and if you fall on your ass, can you get back up and can you make something again? And I've been lucky enough that I've pivoted in my life a few times, and I say that in terms of going from playing, just pub gigs to starting a company and then just selling that company within a week and start going, I'm going to become a country singer. Like there's been these moments that have been really just quick shifts that have changed really quickly. And for me, I think I've been lucky that every time that I've kind of just taken a shift, it kind of just works. And it doesn't, the path isn't clear and it's not all easy. But with enough like clear direction, you just make it work, And I think once you've been through those moments a couple of times, you kind of realize, well, I can make most things work if I approach it with a good mindset, if I work hard and all the rest of it. So I think the idea of like not being afraid to fail and going, okay, well, if it all goes terribly wrong, if I'm going to take this big leap, how quickly could I get back up on my feet? For instance, for me, it was like, if I'm going to go out and do country music and I go big and I put all my money into this recording and I end up with $0 in the bank, how quickly can I get back up on my feet? And I kind of realized, well, I can go knocking on some guys I used to do pub gigs with and they'll pay me a couple $100. And if it all goes terribly wrong, I can put $1,000 in my pocket probably that week if I go out and hustle hard enough, and with that mindset, it kind of became less scary because you go, okay, well, I can put $1,000 in my pocket. I could probably crash on a mate's couch. I could probably, I don't have to eat fancy. I would survive. And then I could probably start to thrive pretty quickly. So I think it's like, if you think about it like that and you break it down to its core, I think, you can just kind of have the faith to go for it.
I love that. Have you had, so we've talked about your wins.
Yeah.
Have you had one project that just generally did fail and you had to kind of start at rock bottom or start at ground zero? Have you had that happen, or is this kind of you trusted and believed in yourself so much that you made everything work? Obviously there's failure along the way, but were there any big failures?
No, it's interesting. I've had these moments that have been really big highs and then have crashed really quickly. We talk about 50 and 50 as much of that was a big plan. I lost money on that and we played so many times to nobody. So as an overarching thing, was it a big success? No, not at all. Like it was a great adventure and we had a hell of a time, but it definitely wasn't successful on those metrics of financial success, or did we play to any big crowds? No, we didn't get any of that. So, and same as like the gigs when I was 20, like I had some success when I was 18. I did kind of a reality TV show. And then at 19, 20, nobody was coming to my gigs. I was playing shows and I was putting money into these events and literally nobody was coming. I'd be losing money. So absolutely there's been like losses, but I think how you handle those and you go, okay, well, that's not working. How do I pivot? I struggle to talk about the big losses and think about that because I've very rarely seen them as losses. And that's like, I truly say that. Like I struggle to sit there and go, oh, that was this terrible thing that happened, because even when I lost money on a gig, yeah, I'd be annoyed that day, but I'd wake up the next day and go, okay, well, I learned something from that. What do I need to change? Clearly that's not working. How do I need to pivot? So in a weird way, I struggle to say that, oh yeah, I had these losses and they weren't wins, because a lot of those moments I still kind of consider them as wins. If I didn't go through those, I wouldn't be able to make the decisions that I do now. So yeah.
Yeah, I've generally found that my failures or my downturns have generally created the biggest strengths. And a lot of people do have that issue where it's like they might be going through a difficult time, or they had difficult times and they can't get over it. But because of those things, you create your biggest strengths that you actually have in your life. If you have had a difficult past, then you will generally try to turn that into, fortitude, whether you can help yourself or help others in the future. So you always kind of build upon what you lost or what you didn't get the way you wanted it. So it's really cool that you kind of see it in that moment, because a lot of people take a lot of time to be able to do that.
Yeah.
You know, in the past, I was kind of like that. I didn't see failures as opportunities until maybe only a few years ago, realistically. And now it's instant for me, where I kind of live through my future self, where if I have like a stressful moment, or, you know, have some things that are pressing, I kind of ask myself, what would my future self in 5 years' time be doing with this exact moment? What would he do in these shoes? Yeah. And because my vision of myself in the future is, you know, significantly further ahead than where I'm at, and exponentially further, he'd look at this sort of situation and go, that is not an issue. Just yella, hurry up, get it done.
Yeah.
And then it's done. So
Yeah.
it gives me that kind of space to move through it and get rid of any anxiety or apprehension that I have towards it. So that's really cool that you've been able to, you know, cultivate that from such a young age as well. Yeah, well done, dude. That's awesome.
It's interesting, and I say this with, not to try to kind of sugarcoat it. I haven't always, not every moment am I like that, and I say that I've had to develop a lot of techniques, and you know, we could go into it about, you know, ideas like morning routines and structure in the day, and all that sort of stuff that allows me to kind of bounce back. I haven't always had that, you know, and definitely through working with coaches and studying and all the rest of it, I've developed techniques that I can kind of go through something difficult, and the next day go, okay, I've got a set of skills that I can pull upon, or you know, a bit of a structure that I can pull upon to get myself back on the rails and keep moving ahead.
What would have been some of your life altering experiences with personal development? What was kind of like one of the parts where it sort of shifted you fundamentally? Do you have one of those moments?
A massive one. So I was running. I started a company in 2016, and it built pretty quickly. It was a company called Red Tie, and you know, that built from kind of nothing. You know, we ended up having probably at that stage probably 50 odd employees working for me within about 2 years, and I couldn't handle the stress of it. You know, it was just too many things to juggle. I was waking up. First thing I'd do is check my email. I was onto it, and I remember I was chatting to my mum, and she said, "You need to go see a therapist. You know, kind of get you through. You know, you kind of get into a bit of a dark place." And I got told, your brother actually told me about this guy, Michael. He told me about a fellow called Nam. And I got in touch with him, and I spent 2 days, this kind of intense kind of one-on-one with Nam. And it absolutely changed my life. Like, it's still to this day, I put it as a pivotal moment. You know, he just gave me a set of skills. He broke everything down and said, what are you eating? You know, what does your morning routine look like? And I said, I don't, you know, what morning routine a little bit. He said, what does your morning routine look like? You know, how much water are you drinking in the morning? You know, all these just really basic things, but you put them all together, and it was incredible. And it just kind of allowed me to handle stress and be able to delegate, and allowed me to kind of stay focused and look at the big picture. And there was so many things that I got out of that. And a lot of it, to be honest, still to this day, I still use all of those things in my everyday life. You know, the morning routine, you know, not waking up and looking at your phone first thing, you know, having 600 mils of water when you wake up, having a cold shower, all of these things. It's habit for me now. I wake up, have 600 mils of water, hop in, have a cold shower, I read a book, I go to the gym, you know, and all that is just, it's so structured. And that allows me to kind of take on all the weight and take on all the, I guess, you know, the high pressure situations with a fair bit of clarity.
I remember one of the things you used to mention, the intention setting before you do tasks, where, let's say, before you enter a room, you set your intention for what you want to experience. Was that correct?
Yeah. Yeah,
Can you touch on that a little bit?
It's done in different ways, and I do it in different ways now. But going, who do I want to be in this moment? You know, for instance, you might start the day and you might have a bunch of emails. Okay, well, in this moment, I want to have a lot of clarity. I want to be focused, and I want to kind of be stress free. All right. Well, you just start actioning those emails. You don't overthink it. You just kind of do it. You turn your phone off. Then you might walk in a room and you say, well, who do I want to be in this room? Do I want to be somebody positive? Do I, you know, what is it? And it changes for every situation. But it's interesting. Like, as an example of this is I wrote down my intentions for 2023 and big picture on what I want to achieve. And one of them was I'm nominated, as I mentioned, it's like I'm the most nominated artist for these awards, right? But there's a chance that I might not win any of them. And I wrote down my intention for that is to be, humble, gracious, and not take it in any way personally, and just go and walk into that room still full of joy and be a light in that room. So if I lose none of them, if I don't get any of them, I'm still going to be absolutely stoked because I'm still winning to be there, and I still want to be somebody that can inspire and somebody that fill that room with joy. And I think once you have that clear intention before you walk into any room, that's who you become.
I found, when you, just like what you're saying now, when you, regardless of the outcome, when you kind of release the expectation, you can actually enjoy the moment. Because I remember I would always have these areas of my life where I was expecting certain things to go a certain way. And when you expect things and they don't go a certain way, then, you start to go downwards.
Absolutely.
And now I kind of approach every opportunity with not necessarily a grain of salt in the way of apathy, but just like, I trust myself in the future and the journey, regardless of the outcome of this opportunity.
Yeah.
And so even in your scenario now, where you've been nominated or the most nominated artist, that in itself is already a hell of an achievement. And most people would dream of just even getting that, right?
Yeah.
And releasing the outcome of what comes next, there are bigger things waiting anyway, So if this were the one thing to ruin your day, then you'd never actually be able to experience true happiness, where you're always expecting something better and bigger and grander and more luxurious and,
Yeah.
When you're able to just come back and say, regardless of the outcome, I'm going to choose to be happy, and I'm going to set my intention to be, gracious and humble and happy and joyful in this moment, which kind of allows you to experience happiness, which is really, really cool. So
absolutely.
I hope that helps somebody out there. That's cool.
Yeah.
So what's next for you then, Jamesy?
The big one for me now is moving to Nashville. So I was wanting to move to Nashville, and that still hasn't changed. Life has changed a lot, though. I'm now a family man. I've got 2 kids, and I've got a beautiful wife, and so now it's no longer a single man's mission. I'm going over there with a family, and that's really exciting. It's going to be a whole new chapter, and that within itself comes with a bunch of challenges. But I'm excited that that's going to be just another chapter. It's going to be another adventure, and I think there's something, the idea of pivoting, it's a bit of a weird situation when everything's working really well here in Australia, and I'm about to go and jump into a big pond with nothing really set up and just kind of go and see if I can swim. But that kind of excites me. And it's that thing again, like, what's the worst that can happen? All right, well, it doesn't work out. I get back on a plane back to Australia, and we keep doing what we do here. So I might as well just give it a crack.
Mm. Do you find you've kind of hit the peak of Australia, of what you could experience in terms of the music industry? Just curiously. Not in a way that's complacent, but in a way that's just...
The Australian country music definitely has like a ceiling in terms of how big you can kind of be coming out of Australia. Absolutely. And that's why I want to go to Nashville. At the end of the day, country music at its core comes out of Nashville. Keith Urban didn't become Keith Urban because he stayed in Australia. He became Keith Urban because he left and he went to Nashville. And that story's the same a million times over. If you want to be on that next level, you've got to go to Nashville. And I want to see if I can do it.
It's exciting, man. You're kind of starting at ground zero again. It's exciting.
Yeah.
I think that's your vibe, though, is the challenge, right? Because once once you've already done the things and it becomes easy, it's like, okay, what's next? What's next? What's next? And
absolutely.
So I'm excited to see what your journey is going to be.
Yeah. It is definitely, that is a common trait throughout my life, is the idea that I like the challenge. I like being at the bottom of the mountain and see if I can get to the top. And it's like, all right, well, we're going to find our way. But it always, that excites me.
And you've literally taken me up mountains in the way that I almost died from one.
Yeah, I've taken
just
you
to
up
not leave the audience hanging. We went up this mountain called Mount Barney, and it's the largest summit, not mountain, but summit in southeast Queensland. James, 2 days before, was like, "Hey, what are you doing Sunday morning?" I'm like, not much. He's like, "You come and climb in a mountain with me." I'm like, "Okay, let's go. Why not?" And what I didn't know was every single year there's about like 700 SES rescues because people get stuck on this mountain and it's incredibly dangerous, right? And we get to this one section where it's a really steep incline. I don't know what the degrees would be, but it's, you know, if you fall backwards, you're falling. You're not, you know, tumbling down the mountain. You're falling downwards about 100 or 200 meters. And I'm stuck on this rock where there's no guiding rocks, and I've got a toe in the mountain supporting my 95 kilos of weight with a 20 kilo backpack on me. And I'm like, I don't know how to move up. I think I'm stuck. Like, I understand why people get stuck in this mountain. And Jamesy, because you're a bit more smaller and agile than me, it's a bit easier for you to climb up. He's like, come on, Joshy, let's go one step at a time. Use all that mindset coaching you've been learning. And so next thing you know, I'm taking that step up, and it doesn't get any easier. Like, I actually feel like I overcame death that day, and everything else that I was stressed about just disappeared, because those intellectual fears disappear when you become primal. That's what happens. So
absolutely.
Thanks for almost letting me die that day. Appreciate that, James. Cheers. Cheers.
No worries, mate. No worries, mate. I feel like that's my role in all of this, is to just to kind of keep you on the toes a little bit.
I love it, man. So what is your superpower, James? What is your superpower?
Oh. What is my superpower? That is a tricky question. I don't think I have a superpower. I believe that everybody. I'll give a balanced answer. I believe everybody has the power to be, you know, have their own superpowers and what they determine their superpower to be. Like, I think if you've got clear intention, back on that thing, you can literally do pretty much whatever you want. You know, it's that idea that, you know, you wake up and it's like Elon Musk has as many hours in the day as you do, right? You know, the guy's a genius, but it's also, at the same time, he's also still just a guy. You know, he's still just a human being. And I think we're capable of whatever we kind of set our mind to. So I would say that I don't have one, but at the same time, you know, I have a million. I can do whatever I want.
I think your superpower is your ability to be humble in a moment of asking about what your superpower is.
Let's go with that.
Napping. James can fall asleep in anywhere. It's ridiculous.
I do have one superpower, which is the ability to nap for about 15 minutes and wake up and go again. That is my absolute strength.
It's amazing. You just like recharge, you know, see the little green bar come up and then ding.
Yeah, that's it. That gives me another 4 hours to charge. Let's go.
Alrighty, well, thank you, man, for joining us in. I think I'll let you head off and do your life and stuff like that now. But thank you so much for joining in and sharing your insights and wisdom and experience with everybody. I hope there's some valuable nuggets that people can take away and implement into their life. So, James, if you would like people to reach out to you, if you would like people to listen to music, where can they find you?
So jump on my TikTok. I love people that follow me on TikTok, which is James Johnston Music. And don't forget the T in Johnston, so James Johnston Music. But that's the same across all socials, Facebook, Instagram. And you can head to my website, jamesjohnston.com, and you can find everything that you need to know.
All the stuff, all those important things.
That's it.
Awesome. Thanks, James. I appreciate you, mate.
Thanks for having me on, Josh. Cheers, mate. Bye.
Thanks, mate. Bye-bye.